And yo, we are live. The Sports Bag Bros podcast is back at you on a Thursday, heading into a nice weekend. I doubt it'll be anything like last weekend when we had the big fight, the controversial fight, which may even lead to more controversy. The NFL Combine ended and started and ended last week as well. News from that, we talked about that on Monday, but we told you, if we did tell you, today, Thursday, if you saw the thumbnail and you happen to be here, this is going to be one of those list shows. And that show was talking about a list of the best heavyweights of all time. What's good?
What's happening? You mentioned last week's fight. I just have to speak on this. The WBA said that the referee made the right call. There are no timeouts in boxing. There have never been timeouts in boxing. How can anybody justify that not being a knockdown? It makes no sense. It just goes to the corruption, for the house fighter. That's all it is. I mean, it's like, it's not even like the NBA's 2-minute report. Oh yeah, the referee messed up. It should have been this. It should. No, they're saying the referee did the right thing, and it makes no sense.
But did Lamont Roach also talk about in the post-fight conference how Tank told him in like a later rounds, I'm not losing. You're not going to win. You know what I mean? He told him that during the fight when it looked like he probably should have been fighting for his life in those last championship rounds, and he wasn't necessarily doing it because Roach was taking it to him. And he was like, yo, you're not winning. You're not going to get it. And guess what? He didn't get it. Even with I think he won without the knee, but the knee just widens the margin, and he still didn't get it. But at least it let people see what Roach is all about. It kind of exposed Tank, and I hate using that exposed word. It's overused in boxing. But if it's ever going to be used, it was certainly used now, and it made me have to reevaluate his resume and all of these fighters he's fought in the past to decide, how good were these fighters when he fought them? What about this provisions for rehydration clauses and all this other nonsense that these new age boxers do? And he fell into every category exposed by Lamont. Maybe it's the geographical thing. Maybe it's just Lamont being better than what people thought. I think it was a combination of everything.
I'm not going to go so far as to say he was exposed. It could be everybody has that one guy they struggle with. Shane Mosley, for him, it was Viper, And these guys, they've known each other. They grew up in the BMV area. They fought as amateurs. And it could just be, Lamont, there was no intimidation factor where other guys, they might have that factor. I know he's a hard puncher,
They sparred together.
I got to watch this. Yeah, they sparred together. He knew him very well. And it could just be he's one of those guys that Tank's always going to struggle with.
Yeah, and we saw it. And if they have a second fight, I think there may be a little bit of a sympathy vote if it's close. And Lamont may just get it, especially if it's down in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area.
What's funny is I guess they were going at it on Twitter, and immediately after fight, Tank was like, he's not next. There's other fights out there.
No, it's not.
Now he's like, well, you're next now. I got you now. Like, he got under his skin on Twitter. He's like, okay, now you're next. What?
Yeah. and legit, man. Exactly. He made himself. He stood up, put up his performance, and everybody watched it. I think if you had a consensus if you had a percentage of the people who thought that he had won the fight, I think you're talking about in the 80s possibly for people who watched it. And, in boxing, you can't expect people to be rational because there's so many emotional people. But you can see the rational posts that were posted after the fight. And even people say, you know what, I'm down with Tank, man, but he lost this one. I can agree with that. I can get down with someone who's like that, who can look at it both ways. But anyway, back to our original list. Yeah, get to this list.
For
The top 10 heavyweights of all time. And we're talking about from 10 to 1. Of course, we're going to start at the bottom. It took some thought. Of course, it took some thought. Mm-hmm. There's been so many boxers, and we have to be able to compartmentalize to a degree, and there has to be some kind of criteria. I think the criteria in this case, longevity should matter. It shouldn't be exclusively the reason why you're there or not there, but longevity should matter. The quality of opposition obviously should matter. So even if you were in a bad era, if you were dominant in that bad era and it happened for a long period of time, the Bum of the Month Club with Joe Louis, damn, but he held the belt nearly 12 years. That matters.
Right.
and he was dominant during that process. And he had some quality fighters, sprinkled in there anyhow. And then so that's part of it. And then probably even Hall of Famers to that degree. When you're on this level, you would expect someone to have fought a number of Hall of Famers, not just one, and had done something against them or had a memorable fight, those kind of things. So that's the loose criteria we're using. You don't have to have all of them, but it's nice to have some of them, or at least one of them, but be dominant in that one category. So we can start off with number 10, working our way up. 10 fighters. Give the explanation. If you want to come in with your list, come in with your list as well. If you want to disagree with what we have on our list, we can agree to disagree as long as you can make your point. So let's go ahead and do it. You want to start it off?
Well, I'll start off. But before I give my number 10, I want to mention some really, really good fighters who didn't make my list. I guess we can call them honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Jersey Joe Walcott. His knockout of Ezra Charles, to me, that's the perfect example of slip and counter. I mean, he slipped the jab and it came with the hook and knocked and put him to sleep. That's like one of my favorite knockouts of all time. But you also have guys like the old mongoose Archie Moore.
Mm-hmm.
But he's coming from lighter weight classes, so he didn't campaign as a heavyweight. So his resume isn't strictly at heavyweight, and so he didn't make my list for that reason. It's not a pound for pound list, otherwise, because I think he is better than guys on the list, but as a heavyweight, he didn't make my top 10 list.
Exactly. And back then, when you looked at the heavyweights, there wasn't too much of a difference between what ended up being a heavyweight and what was a light heavyweight. There wasn't a cruiserweight to bridge the gap. So you had light heavyweights. Look at Billy Conn when he fought Joe Louis the first time. I think he was 168. That's today's super middleweight. And Joe Louis was about 199, 200. And they let the fight go. And up until the 13th round, up until the 12th round, Billy Conn gave Joe Louis something to think about until he got his Irish up, went for the knockout, got caught, and that was the end of that. 13th round knockout for Joe Louis, and that's the way that ended. In fact, we already got somebody in here. Scott's not talking basketball this time.
Scott, how you doing?
He has a list of 3, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, so we know that he's better suited following basketball with that kind of a list. So Scott chimes in with his top 3 at least. You have 7 more to go, but when you have a list like this and it's the top 3, this is like, what, 3/4 of a way to a Mount Rushmore? I hate to see who the next one is, but anyways, that's kind of going to give away some of the ones that we have. You can start off first with number 10.
All right, number 10, I'm going with the Big Bear, Sonny Liston.
Really?
He's probably top 2 most intimidating ever. His jab was legendary. He had a strong left hook. He was avoided by Floyd Patterson and Customato for like 3 years.
I think JFK made them fight pretty much.
Or he would have been, or he would have been champion before and longer probably. And then when he finally did get Patterson in the ring, knocked him out in the first round, knocked him out in the first round again in the rematch. I just think he's a tough SOB. He was a tough SOB, and that's why he makes my top 10 list.
Yeah, that's not bad because that's good because it's all subjective anyway. But as long as you can make your case and you just made your case. People don't have to agree with it, but the case is made. In fact, somebody decided to come up in here. Your TV's a little too loud. This is Jermaine. Stop it in.
I know. I'm at my cousin. I'm at my cousin's house, so I can be on here short. Cuz, can you turn it? One moment, guys.
Hold on. I'm like throwing everything out there. Turn that TV down. Let me put this dude on. Mute that. But anyways, you know what? That's a nice start to the list, and I'll start with my number 10. And then for that, I actually have Vladimir Klitschko at number 10. And the reason why, longevity is part of the criteria, and it does matter. Regardless of the era, kind of going back to what I said about Joe Louis, the era wasn't necessarily great. It wasn't even really that good. But if you're around for nearly 12 years defending your title and getting 25 title defenses, you know what? There's something to be said about that. Vladimir Klitschko in total, what 23 title defenses, 19 straight, I believe it was. So, and you can look at the guys that he had fought. He avenged losses that he's had, and I think that's enough to get him on a top 10 list. I know people won't be too happy with that, but he fought a lot of fights as well. Vladimir Klitschko deserves to be there.
I want to say this. I think Vitaly's better than Vlad.
You think who?
I think his brother Vitaly was better than.
I think Vitaly would have been better if he would have had the same longevity and the eye issue wouldn't have been as bad as it was against Lennox Lewis. But Vladimir is the one, I guess they claimed he was the more talented. I don't know where they got it from. Probably because he won the gold medal in the Olympics. Probably because I guess he was always seeming to be the house fighter, even though he was the younger of the two brothers. They claimed he was more talented. I think they were both pretty stiff and lethargic looking, but they were skilled as hell. Tall, nice jab. They knew the fundamentals of boxing.
Vitaly was a lot tougher than Vlad.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Lennox Lewis pounded him with right hands, and he didn't fold. He didn't get rocked. His brother Vlad would have been on the deck.
Jermaine, do you have a top 10, or do you have anyone you want to throw out there? If we're starting from 10 going up to 1.
10, I'd like to start. I have a top 5. From the top 10, you might laugh at some of the selections. But my top 5 would start from.
Whoa. We're on number 10, though, brother.
Yeah, we're going to 10. Well, you have to have 10. We wanted to have a top 10 because that's the
You can comment if you don't want to give your top 10. You can just comment.
I give a top 10. Matter of fact, my 10 is your 10. Klitschko. Because Klitschko was a warrior.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you know what? And I know people think these Euro fighters were soft. I don't know where the hell they get that from. But when they came on the scene and they're still here on the scene, they're still pretty much finding a way to dominate boxing when they're doing it. But Vladimir Klitschko, he went through the perseverance and came through and not unscathed. But even against Anthony Joshua in his last fight, he looked very good until, Anthony Joshua was just a younger fighter, and it's a young man's sport, and he was able to get rid of Klitschko. But 23 title defenses, you just cannot ignore that. 19 straight, you just cannot ignore that. And I also understand that there were several belts, but he had most of them.
Yeah. I gotta be honest though, maybe I hold it against Vladimir because when he fought Fury, that fight was so boring. I fell asleep in like the 4th round.
That was a terrible fight.
That was exciting as watching paint dry.
Watching the Fury.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm drinking Budweiser also as I talk to this.
Don't worry about it. This is television. Drunk in front of us.
Hey, I drank a couple beers when we did our show after the Bears fired their last coach.
Oh yeah, that little rush show we did, man. Do a little celebration.
So I don't know if you heard, my 10 is Sonny Liston.
And I don't think it's a bad number 10.
Yeah, I have Klitschko at 10. In fact, it's the reverse for me. I have Sonny listed at number 9. My number 8 would be Floyd Patterson.
Well, we're going to work our way up the list, so we started at 10.
I'm sorry, because I didn't see what.
Yeah, you just got it.
When he gave his 10, he gave his number 9. So
okay, he started with his number 9, and so I'm going to go with my number 9. My number 9 ended up being Jack Dempsey, and I was a little torn because of the longevity. He didn't have a lot of title defenses. I believe he had like 4 or 5. Maybe
Jack
3.
Iron Head.
And and he was, man, I've called him overrated several times. So for Jack Dempsey to still be on this list, is it because of the popularity, the Roaring 20s, and all of that, or is it because he's actually that good? I don't. Is he that good? Of course, he was good for the times and all the other stuff. But hold on a second. Let's chime in.
Piston Honda,
man, let's get this dude out of here. You start talking Von Kaiser, Piston Honda from Mike Tyson's Punch Out, bro. Go
Glass Joe.
Glass Joe, the whole crew. My man said great title, man. King Lupo, Macho Man. My man's playing games.
Great tiger.
My number 9 is James Jeffries.
Jeffries, okay.
Yeah, he's
old Jim Jeffries.
He's top 40, 100 on the rings, 100 top punchers of all time. He retired undefeated. He beat Corbett. He has 2 wins over Fitzsimmons. He probably shouldn't have came back to fight Jack Johnson,
Jack
but
Johnson,
hey,
exactly. From his alfalfa farm, that's where he came back
but he
from.
gave it a shot.
Yeah, gave it a shot. And in that fight, Jack Johnson was teasing John L. Sullivan, who was at ringside, because the racial barrier that was going on back then. So he was playing around with him. He should have never come back. He retired undefeated, had all his money on his alfalfa farm. But there were so many people who wanted him to come back because we understand the climate from back then. Even Jack London, the freaking author, take the golden smile off that Negro face kind of thing. And hey, we see where it ended up. So yeah, Jim Jeffries,
he came up with the term "Great White Hope."
The Great White Hope, exactly. And and beating Jim Corbett, the father of scientific boxing. I guess he just threw the jab in there, and it became scientific. No more, no more brawling, no more just rolling around and chilling. But yeah, Jim Jeffries, I can see that in it. Jermaine, you gave your number 9, so I guess we can just go up to number 8. Who would be your number 8?
Floyd Patterson.
Your number 8?
For me, it's Floyd Patterson.
Floyd Patterson, okay.
Mr. Peekaboo.
Kangaroo Punch.
Cus D'Amato's first heavyweight champion, the youngest heavyweight champion of the world up until Mike Tyson was able to duplicate that in 1986, knocking out Trevor Berbick in 2 rounds. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Floyd Patterson, in terms of greatness, is it the great accomplishment of becoming the youngest champ? Because after that, I mean, he was a smaller heavyweight back then as well. Won the gold medal, I think it was in Finland back in 56 as a middleweight. So he was in vogue with those smaller heavyweights from back then, faster than most, quick hands, and the peekaboo style was good for him. It worked for him. But it's your list, so you can say what you want with that.
Who's your number 8, Trav?
My number 8 was Evander Holyfield. So I have Evander Holyfield for obvious reasons. I think there's even more of an argument to push him up a bit, but it kind of goes into what we was talking about in terms of how much did you do as a heavyweight. I think even though I think he and Usyk are probably they are the 2 most dominant and greatest cruiserweights of all time. I think we look at Usyk now. He's had his fights against the top guys in a bad era, and he's won. He's still undefeated. Whereas Evander Holyfield, he came into an era that was just as good or close to being just as good as the golden era of the 70s with Ali, Frazier, Foreman, Shavers, and all those great heavyweights from back then. And I'm thinking that, and he's the belt 4 times, even though it's split up, different belts all over the place. He still became a 4-time champ. Muhammad Ali was a 3-time champ. He's a 4-time champ. And being the smaller guy moving up, the same way I used the argument for Usyk being the smaller guy and beating these even larger guys now, Evander Holyfield is a lot of the same. He also had to go through Leslie Stewart, who was looked at back then. If you lived then, you knew how he was looked at. Knockout power, broke Mike Tyson's record and knockout streak to start off a career. And then he fought Michael Dokes in a fantastic fight at Madison Square Garden.
Who could forget that?
Yeah, and so that was an awesome fight. And then he went on to have his regular heavyweight career, beating James Douglas or Buster Douglas after Douglas beating Tyson. Fought Lennox Lewis, multiple. He wanted all the smoke.
He made Lennox wait like 3 years.
Oh yeah,
and he fought Larry Holmes. I know he fought Larry Holmes, and they didn't want to. He fought George Foreman. So bro, he brought for the smaller guy. I think you give him some passes. He fought everybody.
Lennox called him Evader because he wouldn't fight him.
Ended up fighting him twice.
Twice. Ended up fighting him, but yeah, he ducked him for like 3-4 years.
I don't know about it.
I'll just let the cat out of the bag. Holyfield's not on my top 10. I can't. I know that dude was on the juice. I can't rate him top 10 for that reason.
Really? You
know what? There was arguments about. Well, I know Mike Tyson may not be on some list. He probably is on others. There was issues back when he had that patch of hair missing. They thought it was steroids for him. Until there's something conclusive, I don't even want to. And we could joke around about it or offset or whatever. I don't even want to say that this is exactly what it was. Even though it may be strong evidence with Evan Fields in the house, it may point to he might have done something. I wouldn't be holding against him.
That's just my personal opinion.
Exactly. It is your list. You can do the hell you want.
My number 8, people might think he's a little low, but I got Jack Johnson at number 8.
Jack Johnson.
I know he was the first.
That's favorite
He
fighter.
was the first black heavyweight champion, and
Yeah.
he was the quote colored champion before that. But after winning the heavyweight championship, he didn't give none of his brothers a
And
shot at the
that's
title,
what
man.
I had a problem with when I was putting him on my list. Ultimately, he made my list, and I'll probably get around to him after I get around to my number, what, 7? You talking about we got number 8 now or number 8, 7? Because my number 7 guy would be, after Holyfield, would be Rocky Marciano. The undefeated record speaks for itself, but he did start
Yeah,
boxing
that
late.
was my number 7.
And when you look at what he's done, only 6 title defenses, so it wasn't a long time. He ended his career 49-0, had 43 KOs. But look at the names. I know everybody wants to point out. Look how old they were. He's old too, But you can't call Archie Moore an ageless wonder. But then when he loses to the guy that you don't really like, all of a sudden he's just another old man. We look at what Jersey Joe Walcott was beating him until he wasn't beating him, and in the rematch he ended Jersey Joe's career. As Charles gave him his biggest and one of his toughest fights when he fought him the first time. They had a 15-round decision, the only one to go 15 rounds with him. And then he got knocked out when he was about to lose the fight, when the ref was about to stop the fight, when he had his nose split when in the rematch, and he did what champions do. Got the knockout when he needed it because the ref let him know what was at stake.
That's my number 7.
And Marciano, I know that it's hard, but being 186, 189 pounds, even back then when the heavyweights were smaller, this dude was walloping he was still getting the wins and knocking the named guys out. Look at it. Even if those guys were older, look at those 6 title defenses he had, and the 6, everyone was a Hall of Famer with the exception of Don Calcal. He ended with fighting, what was he? Archie Moore was the last one he had. He was going to come back to fight Gamal Johansson. Started off training actually here in Florida, had injured his back and decided against it, ended his career, and then eventually passed away later on. But yeah, Rocky Marciano's on that list.
You got anything to say about Rocky, Jermaine? Before I go?
Look, the man's on record, pretty much everything Trav said, he stole my thunder. And the record speaks for itself. I wish he was still hanging around when Floyd Patterson and Sonny Liston was coming up on the scene, but he didn't want none of that smoke. So
Sonny Liston more so than Floyd Patterson. With Floyd Patterson's glass jaw and the way that Marciano could go 20 rounds if needed, I think he catches Floyd Patterson. He gets knocked out. The Sonny Liston fight would have been the problem.
Yeah. I would have loved to see him fight Ingo Moyo Hanson also, but Marciano
was easy to hit. I mean, it was a battle of attrition. It would have probably, it would have been a 15-round fight. But I think that Marciano, we've seen it too often. If you watched him enough, if you know any stories about him, if you had a 15-round fight and you were one of these fighters that stood in front of him, it didn't matter if you had a jab. We had some of the best cutie boxers fight him. We've had Ezra Charles, one of the best pure boxers, arguably the best light heavyweight ever. Couldn't do too much with him without getting KO'd. Even when he was winning, he got KO'd. And even when he went 15 rounds and didn't get KO'd, he still lost. And it wasn't a controversy. There was more of a controversy with the first Roland LaStarza fight.
So the way I ended up ranking like my bottom 5 was who I thought would win if they actually fought each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I have Jack Johnson 8 and Joe Frazier 7. I know it's different eras, but I don't see Jack Johnson keeping Joe off of him for, they used to fight 20 rounds to 40 rounds back then.
Yeah.
And like if you're fighting 40 rounds as the heavyweight champ, why aren't you stopping dudes?
And on top of that, when you go back and know these fighters because either you read about it or you just know about it because of, just trying to be a quasi-historian about it. They weren't looking at punch stat and throwing 30, 40 punches around either. Some of these guys were throwing 5, 10, 15 punches around. They spent most of their time in the middle of the ring rolling their fist up or moving around and it didn't.
So
it wasn't
when
like
Jack Johnson saw Smoking Joe coming at him, I don't know if he got answers. I don't think he got answers for him.
So I think Joe gets at him as well. And no
So
matter
I got Smoking Joe number 7.
And after Marciano, then I have Jack Johnson now. He's my number 6 guy. Jack Johnson. And you know what? I actually took out Gene Tunney to put in Jack Johnson because Jack Johnson had more title defenses. And back with what you were saying about Jack Johnson not giving the other brothers a shot at the title once he had gotten it, and you see the round robin of fighters he fought coming up, Joe Jeanette, Sam McVeigh, Sam Langford, especially Sam Langford. I think he was 3-1-1 against 3-1-2 against Sam Langford. So those guys went at it all the time. But that's back then when the black fighters could only fight one another. And so that's what you ended up getting. But I'm thinking I picked him because he had more title defenses than Gene Tunney. Gene Tunney had 2. He won the title against Jack Dempsey. He had 2 more title defenses called it a career. But he also did fight. He fought several times against Harry Greb. But Harry Greb wasn't a heavyweight. He was just a fighter that fought any damn body. And he ended up going 3-1 against Harry Greb.
I think we also have to mention how Jack Johnson basically was in exile for the charges he had against him for
the Mann Act
for
improper reasons.
Trying to think of the word, taking white women across state lines
for improper purposes. That's what they called it. It was the Mann Act. The Mann Act. So he ends up going to Cuba, and that's when he ends up fighting Jess Willard. And some people, I guess, got comfortable saying it was a fixed fight when in reality, and I don't know if I spoke to you about it. I know I spoke to, I think, Andre about it off the air a day ago. And I was like, when there's a fixed fight, if you look at all the fights that were either known to be fixed or had speculation about being fixed, they weren't 21-round fights. They were getting knocked out in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. They weren't taking an ass whooping for 21 rounds. And on top of that,
go 7.
And at one point, he told his handlers to get his wife out of there because he was tiring. So he knew what was coming. So people could believe all that. And his excuse was, you can see I was conscious enough to cover my eyes from the sun. Bro, you was exhausted and you was glad you had a rest. Cover your eyes because the sun was bothering you while you were laying down. That's all it was. But okay.
So I have at number 6, that's where I have Rocky Marciano. You talked about his toughness, his split nose. The fight would have been stopped nowadays, but back then you probably had to be carried out on a stretcher.
Oh man!
I don't know if there was anybody tougher in the heavyweight division than Rocky Marciano.
Exactly.
What he had to endure. You mentioned him being 187 pounds. Not that they had guys that were 6'5", 280 back then, but still he's on the smaller side. And so I ranked him ahead of Joe because I don't think, as tough as Joe is, he's not as tough as Rocky.
No, it would have been a hell of a fight to see those two get together because, Joe Frazier, blue collar lunch pail, South Carolina guy moving to Philadelphia, just tough. Rocky, Sylvester Stallone even stole the story to at least in that part.
He even thinks he would have knocked out Ali. They had that simulation thing they were doing.
You already know how I'm going.
Well, I'm just saying, but for him to think that in his mind,
well, a fighter thinks that.
If you have to beat the L into him.
Yeah, and that's true. If you're 49-0, man, it's hard to tell you anything. We see a modern version of that, and someone who kind of picked and chose some of his opponents. And Floyd Mayweather, 50-0, and talking all this nonsense. Marciano didn't do the talking, but you can only imagine the type of pride and the mindset you have to be undefeated. And for someone to say some other guy in another era that you probably can't fight, you're not in your prime, is better than you or can beat you. Come on, you just can't agree with it. You just can't agree with it, and they didn't. But Rocky Marciano, this guy would train. I think he wanted 20-round fights. It could be scheduled for 20 rounds. He'll knock your ass out of 4. What difference does it make? In fact, I think Joe Louis, the fight against Lou Nova or one of those guys. Matter of fact, I think it was against Cinderella, man. I think that was a scheduled 20-round fight, I believe. But it didn't matter. He got knocked out, I believe, in the 4th. So what difference did it make? So, but Marciano trained like that. He ran. He did all the things that a warrior like that would do to get the reputation and things that he had done.
Who you got number 6, Jermaine?
I have Smoking Joe. Smoking Joe Frazier.
See, and let me tell you right now.
We're in the same ballpark. We just got them flipped.
Since we're this far along anyway, I'll let you know right now that I do not have Joe Frazier. And the reason why, bro, I mean, Ali was exiled from boxing, and it's not Joe Frazier's fault. he ends up getting the New York State title because the New York State title had a lot of influence. So if you had that title, it was recognized all over the world. And then he beats Jimmy Ellis and he wins the WBA title. And then he starts, fighting other guys. I look at the Oscar Bonavena fight. The first time they fought, he got knocked down twice. Second time he did win, but it was decisive, but not. He should have got rid of Bonavena because he was there to get hit. He couldn't do it. But against Ali and Foreman, and he beat Bob Foster, a light heavyweight moving up, trying to make that money. Between Ali and Foreman, he's 1-4 and was stopped 3 times. I just can't have him on my list with that kind of a thing. And he didn't fight a lot to begin with.
Yeah, but you're saying Ali and Foreman.
I know. I understand who they are. Yeah, and that's true. And it was a Foreman who had already lost. It was later on, like way later on. They fought in Nassau Coliseum, your neck of the woods, Jermaine. Back in the day. So, damn. That's the one I had a lot of problems with. I was like, damn, there's no way I can keep Joe off this list. But when you look at the raw numbers, damn, I know there's some, you got to put some context behind it. But shit.
Well, how about this? I don't believe Holyfield ever beats Ali, but Joe Frazier did.
Styles make fights, and we know that part.
Oh, you can call it what you want. I don't think Holyfield ever comes close to being Ali.
You know what? Until that end, I will say, yep, this was the Ali who was just taken off 3 years, nearly 4 years from boxing, had only 2 fights after that with Jerry Quarry and Oscar Bonavena, then jumped in the ring with Frazier, who was already running and popping and just steamrolling, and still went 15 rounds with Ali. So let me say that if Ali doesn't have that exile, if he still just had that activity as usual when he was on the cusp of his prime, fighting Cleveland Williams and then ending that first half of his career with Zora Foley, and then going to fight Joe Frazier, because I think at one point, I know it was early in Frazier's career, he was like, nah, he couldn't handle Muhammad Ali, or couldn't handle, Muhammad Ali at the time. And it was true. He felt that. But then, as he kept going on, his own career worked out and Ali was having his issues. Well, he grew into the part. And then he ultimately had to fight. But it was that exile part, I think, that gave him that chance, because the last 2 fights.
I'm not disputing that. Ali before the exile, nobody touches him.
Unbelievable.
Hey, that speed. Nobody had to answer for.
So we're at number 5 now. So who would be number 5 on your list?
Me, number 5 on my list.
Yes.
You guys probably gonna disagree with what I'm about to say, but Big George Foreman. And I'll tell you what, George Foreman, his first act, until Ali undone him. Yeah. But then the second act, when he came back after a 10-year layoff and just, man, just had a better repertoire the second time around. Despite some losses here and there.
Well, I guess you and I have known each other for over 30 years. So I guess that's why I had George Foreman at number 5 as well. George Foreman at number 5.
My cousin over here agreed the same thing. We both on the George Foreman movie together.
Yeah, bro. I went to go see the George Foreman movie, bro. If there's a boxing movie, especially one based on the real life of a boxer, I'm there. Forget about it. But yeah, the first salvo and the second salvo, he took that 10-year hiatus, became a pastor in the meantime, came back. People thought he was a joke until he worked his way into that in the Holyfield fight. Had Holyfield a little bit on Buzz Street for a minute, and then, lost. And then he ended up losing to Alex Stewart when he let him off the hook in the second round. Alex Stewart just really put a beating on him and got a gift decision, George Foreman that was. But then he comes back for the Michael Mora fight, and we saw how that ended and how the legacy continued. And that's where he ends up at number 5 on my list.
It was a clear victory for Holyfield, but Foreman was very competitive.
Oh, absolutely. That hurt him.
I couldn't believe how competitive he was in that fight.
Bro.
I don't even remember how old he was. He was almost 40, if not 40.
40, yeah, about 40, 41. Because he used to say 40 years old is at the death sentence, he would say. So
let me give my number 5. My number 5 is Lennox Lewis. Your son keeps putting John L. Sullivan. That's the second time.
John L. Sullivan. No, I actually pushed it twice.
Oh, did you? My bad. Yeah. I go with Lennox Lewis at number 5. I just think his size and his skills, especially once he got with Emmanuel Stewart, he got so much better. That he beat everybody he fought.
Yep.
He was avoided by Holyfield, by Tyson.
Bo
Yeah,
threw the belt in the garbage. Did not fight him.
yes. So
Really bum, you call him Travis. Really bum.
Him really bum.
really boom.
I don't know. I don't like calling fighters bums, bro. I seen
So
enough.
I got Lennox at number 5.
Yep, that's crazy because I got Foreman at number 5, but then I got Lennox Lewis at number 4.
We got him reversed.
Bro, exactly. I got Lennox Lewis at number 4 for everything you just said. Lennox Lewis, I think we kind of miss him now. As Americans, I think we didn't give him a lot of credit, even though he had some work in front of us. We was like, whatever, it's Lennox Lewis. As long as that accent is there, he's from Great Britain. He doesn't know where the hell he wants to be. Jamaica, Canada, Great Britain. He don't know what he wants to do.
I was gonna say he would get hated on because people would be like, is he British? Is he Jamaican? Is he Canadian? What is he? Like, that's not a reason to hate a boxer, man. Like, who cares where he's from?
Yeah, and you know what? But for me, that's what it was at the beginning. Because I remember when he did the Riddick Bowe in the Olympics. I was like, man, that damn Canadian. Then I'm like, British guy. Nah, man, I'm not rooting for him. And then now, and I was like, yo, man, he's so boring. He actually wasn't boring. You just hate on him. You're so blind to what he's doing. And then now that he's gone, you're missing the hell out of him, and you're giving his flowers now. And a little too damn late. But I just started giving his flowers anyway before the Klitschko fight. Even before I even thought Mike Tyson had a damn legitimate shot. And Bert Sugar told me, no, he ain't got no shot. You see, Mike missed that shot in front of him when they were on stage. Look how far he missed that shot. He's going to do the same thing in the fight. I'm like, Bert, you know what the hell you talking about? I guess Bert did for that time. And that was, and of course, Mike was shot. But Lennox Lewis, and who forget about the tight fight that he had against Ray Mercer. I don't think people remember that. That was a nip and tough fight, man. It showed a lot of heart.
It was a tough fight. It was a tough fight.
It gave him a chance to show a lot of heart. And then not to mention, he also fought Andrew Galata, beat him the way he did. And then the big farce was Michael Grant, that everyone thought was going to be the new age big dinosaur kind of fighter. He got rid of him like it was nothing and hurt his knee in the process.
Yeah.
Bounced him out of it like an NBA player.
So who's your number 4, Jermaine?
The real deal, Evander Holyfield. The man fought everybody. He didn't duck nobody. The man was just, he didn't. Man. Just fought everybody that they asked him to fight. I believe a pre-jail Tyson probably would have, gave him more of fight than those fights that they had.
You know what?
It would have to been a pre-Buster Douglas Tyson for me. For Tyson to have a shot.
Yeah, that's true too, because he lost his focus after Kevin Rooney.
I don't know. I still think Holyfield beats any version of Mike Tyson. He's already up 2-0.
You think so? Even before the Desiree Washington?
Remember, man, Mike had a little, not issue, but he couldn't really get rid of Jose freaking Rebalta. I mean, Jose Rebalta was
That's true. That's true.
He couldn't knock out Trevor Burke, not Trevor Burke, but freaking Quick James Tillis. Bro, let's not forget about the steps that it took to get to where he ended up being. Not that he couldn't knock out Mitch Blood Green, because I think Mitch Blood had a lot of freaking talent. He just was a knucklehead. He's a pastor now.
He took a worse beating. He took a worse beating outside Dapper Dan's.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Got his eye jammy the whole nine. He got caught out there. But I mean, I think it's just one of those things where styles make fights. And I think I've said it before, and I hate that I have to say it, even in boxing, especially among the top fighters. But he was more man than Mike could deal with. Holyfield was just one of those guys that can dig deeper than you could dig, and he was going to come out on top. The only reason why Mike
got an earful to talk about it.
The only reason why Mike even took that fight is because Evander looked so bad against Bobby Chaz beforehand, and he thought he was completely shot. And boom, rolled the dice to see what happened.
Yeah, there was no intimidation factor for Tyson against.
Nope, not at all. Because dudes, look, I think there's a misconception of people thinking the Buster Douglas fight was the reason why. Oh, no one's afraid of Tyson anymore because Buster Douglas did it. Dudes were still going to the ring scared. They was remember Frank Bruno coming in that second time. That dude almost had a conniption.
I know there's a story. I don't remember the exact details, but Tyson didn't make the '84 Olympics. Holyfield did, but Tyson went to the Olympics, and they were like in the pool hall or something. And Tyson was bullying people until Holyfield showed up. Holyfield was like, "Yo, what's up? You ain't bullying me." And Holyfield wasn't even heavyweight back then.
Yeah, he was a freaking light heavyweight. He should have won the
So
god dog on
there
gold,
there
but
was
he
never
got
any
robbed.
intimidation for Holyfield.
Yeah, Holyfield was just
Back
that
then, I mean.
kind of guy. He was just that kind of guy, and I heard that story too about that pool being in the pool hall. But yeah, and Mike, he did go to the Olympics as an alternate because he lost to Lewis Henry Tillman twice. I think it was back-to-back nights, but in any event, but then they fought again as pros, and Mike got rid of the first round. Let you know the difference between.
So at number 4, I have George Foreman.
George Foreman, okay.
Yeah, I
You
just
got
liked him a
four.
little bit better than Lennox Lewis. George, he had the 2 reigns, came back, as Jermaine mentioned, 10 years later and became champ again. I mean, that was astonishing. I don't think he had any business winning the World Heavyweight Championship again, but he did. He's number 9 on Ring Magazine's top 100 punchers list.
Oh yeah, easy.
He was a very powerful puncher, man. The way he used to work out in the heavy bag.
Oh man, I remember those days, man. Watching that when we was King video.
Imagine taking body shots.
That's what I'm saying. They look like Ali. All he did was wait for George Foreman to get tired. Like that was just all he had to do.
No,
you had to weather the damn storm and feel that pain before he got tired, even if it was just 3 rounds. But he got tired after 5 rounds, and he gassed the rest of the way until Ali got him out of there. So he had to really weather the storm, really feel the pain before he ended up getting knocked out of this. So yeah, to make it seem like it's such a simple thing. Oh, the rope dope. All he did was lay against the ropes. What the hell? You see that there heavy bag? Caved in. Right. Just imagine what was going on inside Ali's body, catching them shots. And George Foreman's jab, let's not forget about how that was. His jab.
The jab, especially the second time around. Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison.
Yeah, Tommy Morrison boxed and used his youth and won that fight. And he had to.
I'm still upset over that fight. I'm like, I was pulling for George, man.
Yeah, but you know what? Tommy fought the right fight and a good fight, and he deserved to win that title that night. And George, hell, an old man. It's a young man's game, and Tommy showed it, even with his glass jaw. But he fought a smart fight. He never got suckered into standing in front of him like Michael Mora did and caught it. And Michael Mora always had a suspect chin, and even as a light heavyweight, I mean, not that he had a suspect chin as a light heavyweight, those guys couldn't get near him. But all his fights as a light heavyweight were knockouts. I think he fought Mike Cedillo. I believe that was his last fight as a light heavy before he moved up to the heavyweight division. But I think it was more. I think at one point, Manny Stewart kind of alluded to it might have been more laziness than naturally growing into a heavyweight. Yeah, he just got lazy and got big instead of just let me just put some weight on like Michael Spinks did or like Evander Holyfield did. Just put some weight on. But anyway, we could go up to number 3. And I'll start off with, the slim pickings here. Larry Holmes, number 3.
I got Larry Holmes 3 also.
Yeah, Larry Holmes, underrated, and he'll never get the respect he deserves. Clearly was able to live in the era of Larry Holmes. I watched Muhammad Ali, but that's before we really knew what the hell we was watching. We just liked the name and all the publicity and everything else. But Larry Holmes, we could clearly see every fight that he had when it used to come on NBC or even the fight that ended up being on HBO. When he fought Carl the Truth Williams or Tim Weatherspoon, I missed that fight, and I remember the Sports Illustrated front cover, battered but still champ, and they had Larry Holmes with that swollen eye. And he said he had diarrhea the day of the fight. That's why he didn't fight that well. I remember all the crap. But Larry Holmes' jab, the right hand, the underrated heart, getting up, still finishing fights. Larry Holmes is easy, number 3.
So I was going to say it could be debatable if he had the best jab of all time in the heavyweight division.
I think
but I do not agree that his 1-2 was not the greatest of all time.
Well, because of the great jab, he could set it up.
So yeah, he threw it so clean and precise and accurate. Man, that right hand was deadly coming behind it. And you mentioned him getting up off the deck. When Ernie Shavers dropped him, I don't think he had any business getting up. But he
he had no right to get up.
To win was amazing. We talk about how tough Rocky was, how tough Joe Frazier was. I think Holmes is right up there with him, but also his will to win. Like when things are looking bad and not going his way, a lot of other guys would be like, "Damn, I'm not getting up." But he got up and he fought on to victory, man.
Against a hell of a fight puncher, man, who kept on coming, trying to land that same shot. And
Yeah, and I mean, even against Ronaldo Snipes.
I'm about to say this. I'm about to bring up that Snipes fight, Mr. Snipes from the Yonkers, boy.
That's the thing about
Ronaldo Snipes. That's a
he,
name I heard at ages. Ronaldo Snipes.
You can catch him, but he gets up.
Yeah, he gets up and tries to win the fight. He's not trying to just clear his head. He's trying to get up and win that fight. I think it came from he was one of those abused children from years ago that have something to prove because they've been picked on for so long. And he's always been trying to get out of Muhammad Ali's shadow. So he always felt, thinking in the back of his head, man, I got to do a little extra to get that respect. In his mind, he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I still think he doesn't, but he gets more respect than he believes he gets, I think. And
y'all like him more than I do. I never was high on him.
You know what? As far as a person, because he wasn't a real personality. Now, remember when the Cooney fight was going on and how he tried to make it like an Ali event. If I bring him here now, I'll punch him in the mouth now for free. Bro, shut up. Just fight. He just wasn't that personality, but skill.
Matter of fact, I wanted Cooney to win. I got cursed out at the night when I'm 11 years old. I was wrong for Cooney because I never was high on him. I'm a red.
After the Ali fight, I couldn't rock with him, but I did against Cooney because first of all, I thought he would beat Cooney. Even that young, I thought he'd beat Cooney, and he did beat Cooney. But Cooney, hung in there and took some shots, and I don't know. I mean,
I didn't like what he had to say after he lost to Spinks. He wasn't the classiest guy telling.
No, he wasn't. HBO made him pay for it too.
Rocky couldn't hold his jockstrap and all that. That was unnecessary, but can't deny his talent.
Nah, and I watched that fight so many times. That first fight between he and Michael Spinks, I think I watched that fight over 50 times since that fight had happened in 1985. Because I remember on that undercard, Julio Cesar Chavez fought back there on that undercard. But yeah, I was watching that fight so many. Even one time in slow motion, I sat there for hours and watching the whole 15 rounds in slow motion. No BS.
Slow motion, right?
Yeah, and
how long did it take you? 10 hours?
No, it took hours, bro. I was watching it. Me and my friend Eddie in New York, we sat and watched that fight in slow motion. Yeah, I wish he was watching this. He could confirm it. But yeah, Larry Holmes doesn't get the respect, but definitely getting the respect here. And deserves it. A skill set, the heart, the will to win, all those things you want from a champion. The first IBF heavyweight champion, he's the one who really legitimized the IBF to begin with when Bob Lee gave him the belt, to represent. And so thanks to him, the IBF got it, skating a little faster. The heavyweight champ is always a good.
Who's your number 3, Jermaine?
Iron Mike. For all the reasons we've been talking about, Iron Mike, this guy came on the scene in 85, 86. Like, who is this guy knocking people up? And then the build up and all the way to Trevor Burbick until Travis, when you made me realize that he got fined wearing the same trunks when he knocked out Trevor Burbick, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
All the way
Trevor Burbick's the champ. He has the right to the shorts.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Playing mind games. He lost his mind.
Burbick trying to play mind games when he knew Tyson was going to come out with black shorts and black boots.
Yep.
No spots on, no roll. Got this gray looking rip off thing. Come to the ring like a bulldog. I'm gonna just destroy everything in sight, man. This guy was just explosive until he wasn't explosive no more. He didn't. Kevin Rooney, the Don King, Robin Givens, and all that stuff, and he was never the same no more. But I mean, still, when he got out of jail, he had some noticeable fights, like his fight with Francois Botha and
Clifford ATM.
The Lennox Lewis like after the first round, Emmanuel Stewart got in Lennox Lewis' head like, listen, man, get this guy out of here.
Yeah, he was fired up. You got a dead man in front of you.
Yeah, you got a dead man in front of you. He killed him. He killed him off like
I have to say, Mike's not in my top 10. I just don't think he has the resume. As much as he was must-see TV, you talked about him having the hole in the towel.
Yeah, everything.
No nonsense. His ring walks, a lot of them were epic, and man, you start getting the chills, you're getting hype. But who did he actually beat? That's why he didn't make my top 10.
And I tell you what, we grew up in New York, Jermaine, and we got a front row seat of Mike. I had cousins who knew Mike before he
My
even
dad
went
met him.
in Brownsville when they was on the street. So they knew him back then. So when he was on the street before Cuz even got to him. But anyways, the aura that he had, everything, he was must-see television, all of that, the explosive power, his talent. He never was able to put that talent, make it work against the best of the best. He never the loss. Every loss he had was by either a KO or a DQ, and we saw how the DQs came about. He got himself out of a fight. Typically imagine Rocky Marciano trying to get out of a fight. You can't even imagine it. This dude just bites down harder and tries to get the win. Mike wasn't that kind of guy. And
I think him going with Don King was the worst decision he ever made. He fired Rooney. No basketball.
Why was you right? Because I met Bill Caton. I was a messenger. I delivered to Bill Caton's office.
You told me that years ago.
Yeah, he told me that Mike just didn't listen no more, man. I'm like,
yeah, and you can see it in his fights. He wasn't doing all his
no more combinations.
Yeah, he wasn't throwing punches and bunches with bad intentions. He was trying to land that one KO punch, and it wasn't
like the Razor Ruddock fight, both of them. Just throwing that one bomb every time. And I remember, I think it was the 9th or 10th round when Razor Ruddock was giving it to him.
If he would have stayed fighting that way, kind of like how when Pacquiao fought, you think he's going to run out of energy, but he never did. That's how Tyson was. But he would stop his guys early in fights. But he couldn't keep that up, or at least didn't try to keep it up.
See, I'm thinking when it comes to Mike, the deeper guys the fights, most things that go wrong in boxing tend to start with Don King. Well, back then it was actually fighters. Well, I can't say fighters were getting paid because he was
Bob Arum. Don't leave out Bob Arum. Whoever says
but he and Bob Arum. Bob Arum, he didn't like Don King, and Don King didn't like him, but they did work together to make things happen. Don King, in terms of his fight cards, he was like Turkey before Turkey. Now Turkey got it going on and got the money. Now he's down with Dana White and crew, so they got even more going on. But Mike, it was always a mental part. I know if you needed someone to say something bad about Mike, all you got to do is just give Teddy Atlas a call. He'd be more than happy to tell you more bad things, and he'll just tell you about it. And Mike just never mentally was able to get past that on that top echelon level against an Evander Holyfield. When things got bad, he tried to get himself out of the fight. When he couldn't get the knockout, he starts looking at the referee. When he got knocked down, even though he was just off balance, it wasn't necessarily a power punch. In their first fight, he's looking at the ref. And then, of course, Evander starts using the head buzz and maybe a little bit of this and that and all the other. And he's looking at the ref. And then in the second fight,
did headbutt him a bunch of times.
Yeah, he headbutted everybody. Actually, Hasim Rockman, when he had the 5 head on his forehead. Woman had Mike's iced tea on his forehead just growing out there, man.
Yeah, that was grotesque.
Yeah, so
he had number 3.
Cartoon nuts. I'm sorry.
Number 3.
Number 2. No, he has Tyson number 3.
Okay,
who's number 2?
Number 2, the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis.
There you go.
I think we're all going to be in agreement.
Yes.
Joe Louis. Max Millen, where do I begin? Max Millen, I could go on and on. The resume speaks for itself. Joe Louis.
25 fights, 25 title defenses, held the title for about 12 years, nearly 12 years. Everybody who was available, he fought them because that was an era that wasn't necessarily great, but hey, whoever was there and wanted to smoke, they got it. Whether it was two-ton Tony Galinto or whether it was Lou Nova or Abe Simon, whoever the hell it was, he was giving it to him, and he was getting rid of them quickly. And so, the Billy Conn fight I talked about a little earlier. Billy Conn,
I was about to mention that.
Heavyweight, going up to fight the heavyweight, he had the fight in the bag. If it was a typical 12-rounder of today, he becomes the champion of the world. But because of the 13th round, Joe Louis catches him, ends the fight, still champ, moves on. They had a rematch with him after World War II, but it wasn't a deal. It wasn't anything after that. But Joe Louis.
Can you imagine the pressure on him going into that Max Schmeling rematch?
Oh,
see, because of the circumstances.
See, historically, yes, exactly. Historically, so I was trying to separate if it's a historical thing or is it an achievement thing? Because Max Schmeling, if you watched him fight or if you just had video or just read stories about him, he wasn't a great fighter. He was just a good fighter. In fact, he won his title. I don't think the only champ to win a title getting disqualified on a disqualification. And so Max Schmeling
he did have the dub over Lewis earlier.
Yeah, exactly. He beat Lewis because Lewis drops his jab every time he threw the jab, and he kept saying he sees something, and that seeing something was that jab dropping, and he can counter with that right hand, and that ended up being exactly what it was. He countered him with the right hand, got him out of there. But Joe Louis, I think there's no question about his career. They can call it the bum of the month, but man, 25 bums. Come on, man. I mean,
For
obviously,
12
was 25.
years, for 12
12
years, there had
years,
to be a couple
everybody.
decent fighters in there.
And enough with he got gift decisions because we know about the Jersey Joe Walcott first fight. They gave it to him, and then he kind of got his get back in the second fight after Charles beats him, and that was that. But then he had his issues earlier on against Arturo Godoy in their first fight.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in the second fight, he beats him then. Ali had a lot of the same things, man. You talk about that Ken Norton fight in Yankee Stadium back in '76. Man, I'm the biggest Ali fan of all time, and I say he lost that damn fight. I hate even talking about it. So you already know who my number one is because he's all number ones for right now.
Right. For the record, though, Brown Bomber's number one on Ring Magazine's all-time 100 punchers list.
Oh, and should he not? The 3-inch punch and just knocking dudes out and just, man.
Is that weight class? Because some have Sugar Ray Robinson, but
well, yeah, pound for pound fighter in terms of pound for pound puncher, you got to go with him.
Yeah, number one puncher of all time.
Yeah,
okay, I get you.
Just blasting dudes' heads off, man. And that's what he was doing.
Yeah,
that triple left hook.
I think Sugar Ray Robinson's actually like number 7 or 8.
Yeah, because he was a hell of a damn puncher as well. And even though they said there isn't any video or real video of him at 147 pounds, we got a chance to see a lot of him at 160. Some people try to get stupid, especially in the boxing world, tell you, well, he had the title 5 times because he also lost. Bro, stop. It's not even about being undefeated, man. It's about being able to come back and win that damn title that many times. And all those guys that
100 fights before he finally lost. 100 fights. Who does that?
No one. Freaking Jake LaMotta was way out of his weight class to lose that fight. Because there was no one else to fight.
And wars with Carmine Basilio. Basilio, I think, was his kid Norton. He couldn't get
Basilio, but he had that chip on his shoulder because he said he got disrespected in front of his wife by Sugar Ray Robinson. He wanted to shake his hand, and I think he got snubbed a little bit, so he kept that in his head and came back with it. Let me see.
For the fact, Joe Louis said that. I'm glad Sugar Ray Robinson ain't no heavyweight. That's what my dad told me. He said,
well, Sugar Ray Robinson was a heavyweight. Muhammad Ali was the heavyweight. Sugar Ray Robinson, at least in his, he didn't even get a prime. I've always said Ali did not have a prime. He was on the cusp of his prime before he was eliminated from boxing, exiled from boxing, suspended from boxing, whatever you want to say when it came to the Vietnam War. He was on the cusp of his prime, and looking at what he had done to Cleveland Williams, and of course, like Bert Sugar used to tell me, well, look at that 357 Magnum he got shot with. Of course, yeah, that had something to do with it, but damn, even without that 357 Magnum, Ali does a lot of the same damn thing.
Oh, yeah.
He might have a little longer, still get ripped up.
I already said it earlier, pre-exile, I don't think anybody touches Ali.
No, exactly, man. And he was only getting better.
I think, at least on my list, no, I was going to say he's the only guy to beat somebody on the top 10 list, but Jack Johnson did beat Jeffries, even though he came out of retirement like, 5, 6 years later.
Exactly. He came out of retirement and off of his alpha form.
But, I mean, as far as Ali, he called himself pretty. I'm not going to judge, his looks, but in the ring, he was pretty, man.
Oh, man.
Watching him, I don't think, as far as heavyweights go, there's nobody to compare him to. He was just so smooth.
Yep.
His punches were quick and fast, lightning fast. His footwork was
and he incredible. Could move for 15 rounds.
Yeah,
he could do that movement for 15 rounds.
Dance on you, bust out the Ali shuffle out of nowhere, and then jack you with a right hand. I mean, dude was incredible.
He was charismatic. Poetry
in his whole career, he threw like 3 body shots.
He's like if you can create a fighter on a video game and there's no limitations, you can make speed 100. Maybe his power wasn't 100, but like footwork, agility, and you're putting everything to the max. That's Muhammad Ali.
And that's man. And the 2 parts of his career, a lot like George Foreman, but he came along in that 1970s era and ended up beating George Foreman. Yes, he lost to Joe Frazier in their first fight, but as I was saying about Joe Frazier, when it came down to Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, 1 and 3, and 1 and 4, and he'd been stopped 3 times against those guys. Still major guys to lose to, but Ali in the second half of his career, coming back from that long exile, not only does he come back, he fights a guy like Jerry Quarry. His first guy back. I think Jerry Quarry was a top 2, top 3 guy coming back. Come on, man. Who does that? No one else is doing
that. Right? Oscar
Bonavina at Madison Square Garden. He gets him knocked out in the 15th round, got the knockout. Then he fights Joe Frazier. In fact, this would be the 54th anniversary this Saturday, March 8th, of the first fight between Ali and Frazier. So yeah,
my dad was there. My dad, I grew up my whole life hearing
your
about
father
it.
told me about it, man. Your father told me about it.
But think about this.
Before I was born.
Think about this. Before the exile, if you told boxing fans there's gonna be a guy coming up named George Foreman, he's gonna be knocking people out the ring, putting them to sleep, stretching them, however you want to describe it. And Muhammad's gonna be a lot slower than he was then. He's not gonna be able to dance. Does he have a chance to beat that guy? Most people would say probably not.
Especially when you look at the common opponent.
He figured out a way how to beat him. I mean, you talk about his IQ. He's like Ali knew he wasn't gonna dance on him for 15 rounds.
But he's told people that just to have it in his head.
I got to do something else, and he figured it out, and he got the job done. I mean, that's.
I remember I heard the story about Ali. It was good news and bad news. The good news was they found out he could take a punch. The bad news is they found out he could take a punch.
He could take a punch.
You know what I mean? And that seems like it played out exactly like that. Getting hit by some of the hardest punches in the history of the sport between Ernest Shavers and George Foreman and even Joe Frazier. And Ron Lyles punching hard as hell like he had done. Oh, man, unbelievable. And every fighter has a couple of break fights. Al Blue Lewis.
Ron Lyles was winning that fight.
Yeah, he was winning that fight. I thought it was an early stoppage. I was wondering what the hell happened. But
Ron Lyles has a bad habit of just wanting to slug, and that's why he lost to Foreman and Ali, because he wants to play slugfest.
Yeah,
Ali punched him out.
And then you got the Chuck Wepner fight, the fake knockdown. Then the first knockdown of Ali's career was Sonny Banks that knocked him down the first time in his career.
Yeah,
and then you had then you had old Henry Cooper knock him down. So yeah, man, he had a couple of knockdowns, but come on, and that's why I'm saying people put so much of an emphasis on going undefeated this day and age. It matters. It probably helps your ego, but it doesn't mean that you're one of the greatest of all time.
Floyd Mayweather done put it in people's minds. If you ain't undefeated, you ain't nothing. And he just, I don't know, man. That's why I'm not.
I don't take anything away from Floyd because he put in that work to get to where he is. But for reason why, look, Julio Cesar Chavez was 15-0 once upon a time. He was 75-0 once upon a time. Now what? Come on.
Joe Calzaghe is undefeated. You see him bragging that he's the best ever.
7-0, 46-0. So yeah, he was undefeated, but the hype machine wasn't behind him, and he's being a British fighter.
Andre Ward is undefeated.
Yeah.
But yeah, Muhammad Ali, man, always gonna be my guy. But I can look at the flaws, like the Ken Norton fight. It's always one of those people who is going to be your problem, and Ken Norton was his problem.
Figure it out.
I went to the Boxing Hall of Fame back in 2011, and that's the last time I saw Ken Norton. He had a walker. He passed away a little bit after that. But as a great fighter, I've always thought he was a very good fighter. I never thought he was a great fighter, but who the hell am I? He's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm watching him. You know what I mean? So that was the Ken Norton part of it. But,
did you ever have the Migo Muhammad Ali dolls? My dad brought me and my brother to DC Muhammad Ali dolls Christmas of '77.
We had that. George, my brother and I had that. The Muhammad Ali and the Ken.
We didn't have George Foreman. We both had Muhammad Ali. I was mad because I wanted my brother to have the George. My dad got each of us make
Ken Norton. Ken Norton and Ali. We had the Ken Norton and Ali. We had the ring, and then with little arms on it. You keep squeezing the joint and let them fight. And those little gloves they put on.
Those were the days, the Migo dolls.
Days, bro. Man, God, man, I was way 5 years. 5 years. We dating ourselves with that. 5 years old with 77, man.
Yeah, I was good that Christmas because I got a Muhammad Ali doll, I had a Fonzie doll, I had a Batman and Robin doll. I'm like, damn. My parents bought me that Christmas.
She bought me a McDonald land before with the train. That got me a grimace that had to stuff it in. Man, it was crazy, man. The hamburger deal.
All right, so I'm adding up our scores right now. I'll have it here in a couple minutes.
Okay. But yeah,
Obviously,
man.
Ali,
Ali's
Ali and Lewis were unanimous 1 and 2. So
yeah,
Ali's number 1, Lewis is number 2.
yeah, it had to be, man. I mean, I know some people say that, and of course, people who know what the hell they're talking about definitely put Joe Lewis ahead of Muhammad Ali. I think that Bert Sugar did have Lewis in front of Ali, and he not always got into it about things like that, but it was always cool like that. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah,
don't
my
know,
dad
man.
would be mad with the Caesars because he said, "Where was Jack Johnson?" Because Jack Johnson for him is his favorite heavyweight. He said nobody can do nothing with Jack Johnson.
Well, you know what? Jack
I just
Johnson
don't
didn't give
see it.
those other
I just
brothers a
don't
shot,
see it.
man.
Jack Johnson. Huh?
He didn't give those other black fighters a shot once he got his title shot, though. You know what I mean? I'm still
Again, I
giving
mean,
facts to
I'm
the
gonna get
fact.
into an argument with my dad when he sees this video. But I'm not.
Yeah, I mean Jack Johnson, for the time he was in, and he was dominant. I mean, look, he fought Stanley Catcher, who was a middleweight. Stanley Catcher knocks him down. We all know the story. He got up and knocked his teeth out, ripped his teeth out of the gloves. And I mean Jack Johnson, I mean, defensively, especially for fighters back then, a great fighter. But man, I was torn between putting him and Gene Tunney, but I did Jack Johnson simply because of the title defenses. Because Gene Tunney was, he had over 80 fights to do it. And he only lost once, and that was to Harry Greb. And then they fought four times, 3-1, or
Yeah,
3-1-1 5 times.
or several times.
Yeah, 3-1-1. I think the record ended there. And going back to Jack Johnson, fighting Sam Langford, I think 3-2-1 as well, 3-1-2. How their series ended, Jack Johnson winning them. But you know what? Maybe if he was the champion, fought them, and he might have lost one of those fights. He's already lost before. But then still look at Sam McVeigh. Still look at Joe Jeanette. He beat Joe Jeanette. And surprisingly, though, and it tells you about the triangle theory in boxing, Marvin Hart beat Jack Johnson. But then Marvin Hart fights the next fight and loses to Tommy Burns, who Jack Johnson ends up beating for the title. So the triangle theory, man. Marvin Hart, one of the lost champions in boxing. He was only champ for like a few months, like 7 months. He won in July and lost it in like February or something. So,
It goes back to what you said before. Trevor's different styles makes different fights. So my dad also.
Not a lot of style going on back then. But yeah, Marvin Hart, man, something that when you talk about heavyweight champs, even in passing, his name doesn't come up. You talk about Bob Fitzsimmons more than that. The old solar plexus punch, and the reason why he's one of the top knockout artists, he hit you to dead solar plexus. You take a knee, that's it. You can't do a damn thing about it.
All right, so I got the tally. You want me to start number 1 or number 10?
Number 10, like we started off.
Okay, so those receiving votes who did not make the top 10. We have Jim Jeffries with 2, Jack Dempsey with 2, Vladimir Klitschko with 2, and Floyd Patterson with 3. So that means Sonny Liston's number 10 with 3. I gave him 1, and Jermaine gave him 2. Jack Johnson's number 9 with 8. Joe Frazier's number 8 with 9. Holyfield is 7 with 10. Dennis is 6 with 11. Marciano is 5 with 13. Larry Holmes is 4th with 16. George Foreman is 3rd with 20. And then we already talked about Brown Bomber 2nd and Ali. Brown Bomber 27. Ali swept number 130.
Yeah, bro.
In case you're wondering how I got those numbers, I gave number 1 10 points, number 2 9 points, and so on. So whoever we ranked number 10 got 1 point. That's how Vlad got 2 points. You guys ranked him number 10. I ranked Liston 10. Jermaine ranked Liston 9, so he got 3 points.
Wow. And I didn't even have
actually Patterson's tied because Jermaine he's tied with Liston because Jermaine ranked him number 7. Now that I think about it. So yeah, 10 we got Liston and Patterson tied. But that doesn't make sense since Liston knocked him out twice in the first round.
I know, right? In first round. Like, bro. Come on. And they made
he had no chance in them fights.
JFK had to make that fight happen, man. He had to kind of get in there like, yo, bro. Because in the beginning, they didn't want say, listen, having the title because he was the bad guy, the mafia affiliation, all that.
Yeah, I know.
About mafia affiliation. Come on. Get this fight jumped off. But yeah, man, that was a
because the model had his own affiliations.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what killed me, Travis, is the very last fight that he lost to Leonis Martin. That's when I was
that was a brutal knockout.
Yeah. Leonis used to be a sparring partner too.
You know how that goes with sparring partners. You know, they just know you better. And if you don't know two fighters of sparring partners or worse sparring partners, and you know one guy and don't know the other, and the fight is close, you're wondering why? Well, that's why most times that's sparring, getting that familiarity between two guys. There's a lot of reasons why that happened. Now, I don't really believe completely with the amateur background experience. I was talking about that just last fight between the Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach. They fought in the amateurs, but they're talking about this in the 9th, 10th, and 11th round. Bro, these are amateur fights that go 3 rounds, man. What the hell are we talking about? Their damn rivalry in the amateurs in the 10th, 11th, and 12th round. Who cares?
I didn't go for dope.
Anyway, we can close this out now, man. But we got it. Bias just gave you the score
was fun, man.
Yeah, I thought it would. Hell, Bias's idea because I was like, let's watch another fight. You're like, man, I think a list would be something.
I like doing lists better than watching no fights.
Yo, so we're gonna have another list, man. We're just gonna be in another weight class soon. So,
why don't you do something about the Rocky movies, man? Someone was asking who's the best Rocky fighter.
The Rocky movies, man.
Well, we can rank Rocky's opponents.
Rocky's opponent, right?
Where does Spider Rico? Where does he rank?
At the bottom. He isn't Clubber. He isn't Apollo. And he's not freaking Drago. So, yeah.
Bubba Lane and Tommy Machine Gun.
Bro, they fought bare knuckles in the street.
I know.
They pulled a John Sullivan on us and Jake Kilrain. Right out in the street.
Cat. My cousin's cat twirling around my leg, man. What is it?
Were you up in the Bronx right now?
Yeah, I'm near. She lives near Yankee Stadium.
Oh, I bet.
You wait for me to get off the air so she can finish talking.
All right.
Too bad. No, I told him that you be coming on at 6. So,
All right, cool, man. I'm gonna try to stop up that way this summer, man. For probably like last time I went up there for about a day. Remember I went up there.
It'll be a Yankee game, man, because I'm off on Saturdays.
Well, you know how my schedule.
Man, you guys can take this off live.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure. We don't have no audience now.
I know, right? Let's close it out. Man.
I'm sorry, but
we're gonna keep him out. Let me see.
Think the White Sox gonna do this year, Bias?
Tell it to the judge.
Which judge?
Aaron Judge. That's who.
You're a White Sox fan, right? What do you think the White Sox gonna do this year, man?
Come on, man. You trying to be funny?
No, I'm not trying to be funny.
They're not gonna do nothing. They're trying to trade their best pitcher. I mean, the best player.
Well, sometimes there's teams that come out. No, I'm being serious. Sometimes there's teams that come out of nowhere.
No. This is what you should do. They ain't
spending money, man. They're not spending the money they need to spend.
This is what you should do. Every game. Now, you're not going to win every game because they're not going to lose every game. But bet against the White Sox every game. They're going to lose 100 at least.
Bro.
Yeah. Look what's going on in basketball with the Detroit Pistons. My Knicks can't even beat that.
I just bet Denver yesterday, man, against Sacramento. Bro, at halftime, the live had Denver +2. So I was like, yo, bro, they're going to come back in the second half. Boom. Got paid. They come back. That's like give me money, right? Sacramento on the road.
You can't talk basketball. Scott's going to want to come on and tell us about his fantasy team.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is Scott the King, right?
Let's get this out while we can. The hell?
Oh, yeah. Let's get out.
Did he have Kyrie? Yeah, Kyrie. Kyrie's done for the season.
Oh, Kyrie's done for the year, too, bro. Oh, man. Shoot. You know what? Damn, I think that happened to him. Like, he's an old dude. You know how hard it is to come back from those kind of injuries as an old player.
But how dumb does the GM have to feel? Trade for AD, plays one game, gets hurt. Now Kyrie's out for the season, and
Mark Cuban was still in charge. He probably fired that dude there.
Yeah, bro,
it wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have
Vernon tickets in a
authorized it.
bonfire right now. Those tickets, season tickets are in a bonfire right now. After this
Yeah, it
happens,
wouldn't have
what's left of the
happened.
season.
But anyway,
Anyway, we look forward to March Madness. We'll get a chance to talk about that on Monday. You know, creep into this March Madness, these conference tournaments going on. Money to be made if you want to go that route. Anyway, he's Bias. I'm Trav. And that's Jermaine joining us on our Sports Back Bros podcast. I talk
Peace.
about 10
for joining
heavyweights
us, Jermaine.
of all time.
All right,
Let's
man.
go.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Go check it out.
Take it
Until
easy.
Monday.